Good evening, everyone. We will call the meeting to order at the Moorhead City Council. Today's date, Monday, January 30th, 2020, first meeting of the new year and decade. So, Madam Clerk, can we please get a roll call?
Shelley Dahlquist. Here. Sarah Watson-Curry. Here. Shelley Carlson. Heidi Durand.
Here. Deb
White. Larry Seljevold.
Here.
Chuck Henriksen.
Here.
Steve Lindos.
Here.
And Mayor Johnathan Judd.
Here. Can we all please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item number 3 for those at home, agenda amendments. Are there any amendments regarding tonight's agenda?
There is, Mr. Mayor. Item 8A is being pulled off consent. That is a mayor and council appointments. And on that agenda item, additionally, we need to pull Kenyon Williams' appointment from the Arts and Culture Committee because it was a clerical error. We miscalculated, and he served all his terms. Okay. So that one will be pulled off that particular item. In addition, the third requested change is because of the audience, and if there's anybody that wants to speak to that item, it was requested that that be moved up under number 4 on the agenda.
And I want to also take the time, because I was the person that wanted to reappoint Mr. Williams, to thank him for his service on the Arts and Culture Commission. Yeah, I was not aware that he had served his terms, because I know that's a pretty big, been a pretty big asset to the city in that capacity. So, before I go forward, since we are making those amendments, I need to restate, to state that the Moorhead City Council welcomes and encourages public input on issues on the agenda or of general community interest, time and council permitting. Speakers are limited to 3-minute presentations. Advertised public hearings are scheduled so that the public is afforded an opportunity to speak. Public hearings are generally scheduled 15 to 30 minutes after the start of the meeting. However, the starting time may vary depending on other scheduled agenda items. Citizens wishing to address the mayor and council regarding a specific agenda item other than public hearings will be afforded an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Citizens wishing to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be afforded the opportunity to do so under the heading Citizens Addressing the Council, usually scheduled at the beginning and end of the agenda. Each person requesting the opportunity to speak is asked to fill out a request to speak form, which are located outside in the entryway, in the atrium. So I wanted to mention that because I know that there are some citizens this evening that wish to be heard on agenda item number 8A. And just so people are aware, 3 minutes per person. Also that there will be 15 minutes allotted for discussion on that item totally. So I want to make sure that if those folks who are wishing to be heard, if there are other people who wish to be heard as well, if the person that gets called before you, if you're going to say the same thing, try to, I guess, work it out to where everybody's on the same page, because again, we only have 15 minutes addressed for that item. So. With that being said, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. And of course, with 8A being pulled off, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Lindos, seconded by Councilmember Watson Curry. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then we will move on to, I guess, the discussion on item 8A. So I guess technically speaking, number 7 is going to come up with citizens addressing the council, and then we'll transition on to item 8A. I have the request to speak forms. I would take them in the manner in which I have received them. My understanding is Delray Williams is present to speak. Though we know who you are, you may approach if you want to. And if you could, though we know you, say your name and your address, and then we'll give you a few minutes.
Thanks. I know the role.
I figured you might, but.
My name is Delray Williams. I live at 1011 10th Street South in Moorhead, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on this item for a few minutes. What I wanted to talk a little bit about is history a little bit. I wasn't, I was that kind of person that read the news, always was involved. So I'm aware when we've had past timeframes long before I was on, you guys were on, which Moorhead Public Service would become part of the news. And without knowing behind the scenes things, it's intriguing. And so in 2013, when I was elected and Chuck was elected, that December, front page news was a blow up between MPS and the City of Moorhead Council. And so it was front page news. It was a number of pages. And so watch that, because I was going to be the new mayor. As I know you, JJ, watch the things that you know you're going to have to work with. And I am that kind of person that likes to mediate. I like to listen. And so I watched with real interest in the very beginning. I don't remember the exact date. I would assume it was probably in January that we decided to have a meeting. It wasn't a quorumed meeting. It was a meeting with some of the city council, some of MPS, staff, and back there. And so what I'm going to tell you about it a little bit is one of the staff individuals put those newspaper pieces on foam core, brought it in, smiling. And I didn't know people yet. I'm still kind of learning, and I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. That's not what I expected. Any kind of context of how we're going to work this out together. Papers were handed out as if agendas were made on some pieces of it before there was even any kind of discussion. And before we even got going, MPS commissioner and a city council member got into a heated fight. Okay? So as a new mayor, I'm like, okay, this is interesting stuff. We have a lot to do. And so 5 years is 6 years later. I don't think anything's different. It's just very interesting. It's part of some degrees of culture, and it takes time, and it takes particularly good conversations, not one side where somebody meets or a group meet downstairs to decide what they're going to do at this meeting. It has conversations between the parties involved. I'm done.
Sorry, madam.
No problem.
Yeah.
And so I would like to encourage this because I think it adds to conversation, because you will always hear each other's part if you have somebody of council on the actual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Pat Kovash. And though we also know you too, Mr. Kovash, if you don't mind just stating, the public will want to know your affiliation because you serve on EDA and those things.
Yep.
too,
So my name is Pat Kovash. I own and operate Kovash Marine, and I own several land parcels on First Avenue. I serve on the MBA board, and I'm a EDA commissioner, and I represent the MBA. And then I also serve on the McCarr Review Board and the West Central Initiative. So I try to stay involved. First of all, I'd like to say that I do appreciate all of you up there that I was able to have a conversation with. I think that's one of the real strong points about Moorhead, is that it's such a small group that we can actually find people and have conversations with them, even if we respectfully disagree. And, you know, the reason I'm up here is my problem, the reason I'm up here is I don't feel that council people should be appointing themselves to a paid position. I just think that's kind of awkward. And you know, there has to be a way where we can work through this, because I actually think that the strength of Moorhead is the ability for people to pick commissioners and get that diversity of thought. And I think that we kind of miss out on that when we have council people that might decide to appoint themselves. And, you know, if a council person feels so strongly that they want to appoint themselves to the Public Service Commission, you know, then maybe they should step down as a council person. And I mean, if they really feel that they can add value to that, you know, that might be a decision that they could make. And so, you know, I just really want to make sure that we have that diversity of thought. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with people, and it almost kind of seems like we've got a solution in search of a problem. And you know, what I would like to see is I would like to see the people on MPS, there really needs to be some conversations here. I mean, there has to be a way that we can sit down without the dreaded nuclear word or conspiracy, and get these people to really work together and hammer it out. Let's figure out what issues are on the table and just work together, because in the long run, you know, Moorhead has had quite a run, and things are working very nicely. And in the end, we're all in this together. And so I would just really encourage lots of communication and lots of dialogue, and let's find a way to work through this together. But I think that the commissioners appointing themselves, it is kind of unprecedented, kind of makes me uncomfortable. I don't see how you can get on MPS and negotiate in good faith when you're also a council person. I mean, we had a person in the second ward, you know, that stepped forward. That's one of our largest energy users that would be very qualified. And I don't think it's a conflict of interest. I actually think the bigger conflict of interest would be a commissioner appointing themselves to a paid position. And that's all I have to say. I hope we can work through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kovash. We appreciate your comments. Next up, I apologize, I've got some paper here. Mr. Jim Steen, if you'd like to approach the podium. And also, though we know who you are, you may want to just tell the public what your background and how you work with the community as well.
Okay. Well, welcome, everyone. My name is Jim Steen. I live at 601 29th Street North in Moorhead. I serve also on the MBA board. I also serve on the UMCOMS board. And one of the other things I do is I chair the Charter Commission, which I think this is going to end up being in play, unfortunately. There's a couple notes I took a little while ago that, you know, by resolution, way back in 1896, the council passed this resolution which said it is necessary in order to furnish light and water at a minimum cost that such plant be run strictly on business principles, and be entirely removed from the influence of city politics. Well, I think by a council person, qualified or not qualified, this person is very well qualified. But appointing themselves to a paid position, and I'll agree with Pat, is wrong. The optics are wrong, and it sends a bad message. Whether 5 years down the road, 10 years from down the road, you might not want to see this happen. There might be a person that's going to appoint themselves to a paid position that you don't want them to be there. So I think it's that, appointing yourself to a paid position, which brings into another things. I know the council people get paid per diems to sit on any board, whether it's a library board, a park board, they get paid a per diem to show up to that meeting. Well, the rest of the people that are appointed don't get paid. So why is that council person more important than the rest of them? So that's another thing that maybe the charter has to look at. Anyway, I think this opens a can of worms. The Charter Commission as a whole, the most of them that I've spoken to, never want to change the charter. The charter is, it's a good charter. It's written in a way, but if this forces us to have a discussion, which we will, I've already indicated that this is going to be a discussion on the next charter meeting, to have this discussion, and maybe we'll put forward some changes. It'll come to the council. Maybe they won't approve it, but eventually it'll get back to the citizens of Moorhead, and they'll make that decision. And I think this is a can of worms that doesn't have to be opened. There's plenty of people in that ward that can fill that position. I think wards 3 and 4, congratulations. I think you did a great job. You made some great choices, I think. You did your due diligence by going out there and looking for someone that I'm hoping shares your views. I mean, because that's part of the process, I would think, of going through that, of picking somebody to represent you on the board. I just cannot believe there's not anybody in Ward 2 that can't fill that position also. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and for your service. Thank you.
And thank you as well, Mr. Steen, and also thank you as well, Mr. Kovash. And Madam former Mayor, thank you for your service as well and for your comments. One moment, please. My apologies. I just wanted to show some respect for Councilmember Seljevold because he had pulled it off consent, and so I wanted to defer if he had any comments he wished to make, because I've got a few that I'd like to make. Are there any council members that wish to be heard before I speak? Councilmember Dahlquist.
Thank you, Mayor. The people of Moorhead voted for us to represent them, and I think they trust us to make wise decisions, that we don't take them lightly. And so I want to just reassure people that we do take these appointments very seriously. Thank you.
Any other council members that wish to be heard? All right. So I have a few comments I'd like to make. First and foremost, well, Madam Clerk, you can probably take off the time. I might be slightly over 3. I have a few comments that I'd like to make. And again, first and foremost, I do appreciate MPS because they provide a great service to our community. We have, arguably, though, Mahoney, if you're watching, we do have the best tasting water in the region. And we've won national awards, and I think that we should be commended for the work that MPS has done to give a quality product to our residents and to our businesses. So for that, they should be commended, and we greatly appreciate that work. On the flip side, I also would like to say a thank you to the NBA because, again, you are a part of why this community is resurrecting our businesses. And without your leadership, we would not be able to be here today. So your advocacy on behalf of the businesses, the business owners, the customers, and those that make up our proud business community, we do appreciate that. And honestly, I do appreciate everything that you are saying about your concerns about why or how the council may vote the way that maybe, because some people may change their mind that we're going to vote tonight. People mention optics. I got to say, I'm a little frustrated. I took my little hockey 24-hour rule because I wrote about 5 pages of comments because I was very frustrated about this because I feel like we should be Moorhead proud, period, in the discussion. I'm really kind of disappointed because we received a letter that stated, and I want to quote, in part, appointing yourselves to a second paid position within the city, while not prohibited, raises so many questions of ethics, trust, and does point to some unknown conspiracy on behalf of the city commissioners. I'm not sure even how to take that. And for us to be Moorhead proud and hashtag 56560, I understand the passion, but I'm sorry, that's not Moorhead proud. I think to insinuate that the individuals sitting up here have to be questioning the ethics and the trust, and that we're pointing, and that there's some unknown conspiracy that's being pointed at us because of a decision that we're trying to make, I think that's kind of disingenuous. I mean, we know that there's a problem. Everyone up here sat up here and did the research. I've only been mayor for a year. We should be celebrating our city at the State of the Cities on Thursday, and we have to receive a communication that questions our ethics and our trust with the public that we were elected to serve. Folks, we did our homework. We reached out to a lot of people, and this has been a problem even before Mayor Del Rey came on board in 2013. This has been a problem the city and NPS have had. I don't want to call, well, maybe I will just call it dysfunctional relationship, with lack of trust, lack of communication, a lack of accountability for years. So we are being questioned by our ethics and our trust, and being told that there's some unknown conspiracy because we're trying to resolve an issue that's been ongoing. None of us signed up for this. So here's the deal. The issue is this. The issue is Councilmember Durand appointing herself to a paid position. That's the main issue. Well, she's not even going to take the pay. She's doing this because she sat for 8 years and she has seen and heard what the issues are. Why do we want to appoint somebody to come into this mess? Because there's things that need to be fixed. No one says she's going to be there for 30 years. She's going to be there because she is well versed in what the issues are and is going to work to a solution that's going to benefit our ratepayers and our taxpayers. We don't distinguish between ratepayers and taxpayers. They're Moorhead residents. They're affected by any decision that we make here, as well as NPS and what decisions those commissioners make. We should be celebrating that. I can tell the public and tell you all, there's no unknown conspiracy. No one is acting unethical, and you can trust us. We've done the best that we can. And I will tell you that this was a very hard decision to make because, yes, we do want to appoint folks that are qualified, who are passionate, who are looking out for the best interests of all of us with our public utility. But as I stated to Mr. Olson, who called me up, and I told him on Friday, as I'm driving my kids to Grand Forks to address this issue after reading this, that this is not about anything else other than a lack or could be better communication, a lack and could be better accountability. Those are the 2 key points of why this decision is being made. And many of you sitting out there know what I'm talking about. And we would never publicly attack anybody and question your ethics or your trust or some unknown conspiracy because you're advocating for the people who need us the most. So I'm encouraging us all to stand together and make this vote because it needs to be done to better the citizens of this community, because they deserve better. They don't deserve to be in the public infighting about power, control, and all those dynamics. The nuclear option came up back in 2016 before I became mayor, and there was an article, and I'd even create, the only nuclear option I knew about was Barry Goldwater's 1964 campaign commercial I learned in class, okay? So to say that I came up with this term, again, is very disingenuous. And to think that all of us up here came up with the term and are subscribing to it is really far-fetched. We deserve better than this as a community. So, folks, I'll take the fall on this one because I think it's in the best interest of our city, of our residents, ratepayers, and MPS that we have better communication, better accountability for our residents. And this is a very big lesson because we can't continue to operate in silos, and there's a perception that MPS has for a number of years. So let this be a lesson. For anyone who's wanting to work or serve on a commission, if you have your personal agendas or whatever, the council, I encourage you from this day forward and for new leadership coming down the road, talk to those folks, do your research, and make sure that they're about Moorhead, nothing else. If you can't check your self-interest and your agendas at the door, please do not serve on any of our commissions, including MPS. Anyone have anything else they want to say? Is there a motion to take a vote? Councilmember Duran.
I'll be recusing.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. So I have to find my agenda here.
Get back in time.
So, moving on to, for those at home, we are at agenda item number 5 for recognitions and presentations. We have Mr. Joe Razzo. My apologies to you for, you're here to celebrate the things that you're doing with our city. We greatly appreciate it. My apologies for keeping you waiting. So thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you, and no apologies needed. 26 years of representing communities in Iowa, Colorado, and now North Dakota and Minnesota. I've been in these rooms more than once. This is my first go around on these conversations, but I think the best thing about them is that they're happening, and people are able to share their thoughts on very important issues to our region and, of course, to the community of Moorhead specifically. I wanted to first thank you, Mayor Judd, for your service on the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC Board of Directors and for the time and commitment that you've given to the board and to the region with how we think and act in terms of our focus on economic development. I also want to thank the council for your continued support of the EDC and the work that we do in partnership with the community. And specifically, I want to thank Chris Volkers and Dan Molly and Derek LaPointe, 3 individuals who I spend quite a bit of time with on issues on behalf of the city of Moorhead. really appreciate the relationship that I've been able to build with them and so many others here in the community. I had in your packet some information, and then I've added to it tonight with a couple documents in front of you. You have in your packet a one-pager that's just really an update on the various business development and capacity building initiatives that the EDC has worked on with Moorhead and across the region. There's also a plan of work that was included in your board packets earlier in the week. But I want to actually back up just a second, and I should have included this, and I apologize for failing to do so, but it's in front of all of you now, which is a one-pager, front and back, that describes the EDC and our relationship with other important nonprofit organizations throughout the region, who in their efforts are supporting the community in the region in various ways. We produced this at the end of last year and are providing this to all of our clients and partners and investors. And the one comment that's come back is a general thanks for us doing this to help our partners and investors understand the relationship, because I've been here 18 months this week, and I've had hundreds of conversations, and usually the conversation goes something like this: it's great for you to be here. Now, can you describe for me the difference between the EDC and this Fueling Our Future initiative that you're doing with the Chamber, and this Valley Prosperity Partnership, Emerging Prairie, and all these other groups that are really so important for us to be working in partnership with to accomplish the broader mission of a great region, great communities for our citizens and for our businesses. And so this document helps to break that out in a little easier way. I know it just got put in front of you and it's not in your packet, so if any of you have a follow-up question either after my comments or later on, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know what those questions are. In that packet, as I kind of step back, there were a number of things that we highlighted in the 2019 year related to our business development work, whether that was our business retention and expansion outreach that our organization led in partnership with the economic development staff for the community. There were a number of projects that we helped to support, and also projects that are still in our pipeline. Many of those are listed here for your background and knowledge. We also had staff take a trip with Minnesota Deed to Chicago to visit with some key site consultants and businesses that have relationships across the state of Minnesota and in particular in our region. And there are a number of capacity building initiatives that were underway and are still underway as we speak. We kicked off our Fueling Our Future initiative, that partnership I think I talked to all of you about months ago, the partnership with the Chamber and the EDC. And I'm really happy to report here tonight that that very first initiative out of the box was to support standing up the career workforce academies, both in Clay County and Moorhead and in Cass County. And right out of the box, we were able to support the Moorhead Public Schools with their Yes initiative to get a vote, overwhelming vote, 75%. I think any of you elected officials would take that, wouldn't you? 75%. To really be a shining star and an example to the region of the importance of connecting our students to their passions and exposing them to things that will interest them, that can then guide their education through their K through 12 and post-secondary journey. And so we're in the process of hopefully working with Cass County in the next few weeks to try to get a Cass County Career Workforce Academy launched. And as the regional business organization working with the Chamber, we also have a commitment to make sure that if those two initiatives go off as we hope, how do we provide the wraparound services between what the students in Moorhead and the students in Cass County need with the businesses that are, there's no borders to our businesses within our region. And so we want to make sure that we provide the necessary one-stop shop services that we see in other markets that we're competing with on a daily basis for growth. I also included in the handout today a document we call our Smart Book, and I'll just hold that up for the public. I apologize it wasn't in your packet. On page 8 through the end of the booklet are a list of various programs that are provided to the primary sector companies across our region, obviously including all in Moorhead and Clay County. There are about 400 to 500 businesses. And when we meet with those companies, we provide this booklet so they're aware of the various workforce development programs, city incentive programs, and other things at the state level and maybe even nationally that are available that they may not be aware of that they could take advantage of. So it's really helpful to new companies coming to the region to know what's available to them, but also those existing primary sector companies right here in Moorhead. And what we find more often than not is they're not aware of these programs, and so it gives us the ability as a team, the Moorhead team with the regional EDC team, to let them know that we're here for them. They don't have to know and understand all these. They just have to know enough to call us, and we can walk through and find the right ones to marry up to their particular needs to help them grow both their workforce and their overall business in our region. So I wanted to just use this time to just give you a kind of a summation of the various activities we've had as it relates specifically to the community, the way in which we're communicating who we are in our partnership with you and many others, and to share some tools that we're using on a daily basis when we're communicating with those companies that are our clients here in Moorhead. And then lastly, this is our 2020 plan of work that was in your packet. We're on a 3-year plan. 2019 was the first year. We had 28 successful projects, over 550 jobs those companies were committed to creating across our region. Just so you all know, on a daily basis, there are about 12 to 13,000 residents of Clay County who cross the river for work in Cass County. So even if the projects that we're focused on aren't all here, in fact, a majority, quite frankly, aren't, but it's the workforce and the interchange of that workforce living in Moorhead, living in Clay County, having tax base here, sales taxes, property taxes, and other things. It's regional. It's not city-based the way economics works, and it's obviously that's why you've all been supporters of the EDC for quite some time, and we very much appreciate that. So this plan is really a breakout of the work we are doing as a board and as a staff in 2020 in hopes of achieving a 3-year vision and our goals of 85 projects. So we're well on our way to meeting our project investment, jobs, and new square footage utilized. Those are kind of the 4 big metrics that we tend to get measured on. So feel really good about all of that. Lastly, I'll just mention as a reminder, we do have a professional services agreement between the EDC and the city. This was structured and built in the conversations primarily with Chris and I think, and our teams. And so we look at that on a regular basis, and there are 11 items specified within that professional services agreement that we check off and say, are we making sure that we're doing these types of things based on this agreement so we're serving your needs. So with that, I'd love to take any questions or comments you have.
Are there any questions or comments from council? No? All right. Well, I mean, I guess, thank you for being here, Joe, and for folks at home to know that the EDC also, beyond just the city of Moorhead, also does work with Clay County primary sector businesses as well.
Yes.
And so, you know, I think you're a very valuable resource, and I talked to the president of Stone Ridge Software, who is indebted to the EDC for a lot of the things that you're trying to do regarding workforce development. So there's a lot more that you do that has made a significant impact, not only on our city, but also in Clay County, in the region. So,
Mayor, thanks for mentioning that, because on our board, just so you and all the citizens are aware, we have 8 or 9 board members that are representatives from Moorhead and Clay County. The university presidents, American Crystal Sugar has a current seat on our board. Obviously, you, Mayor Judd, county representatives on our board. So the Clay County marketplace within our region is very well represented on the board. Chris and Derek and Dan and others come to our quarterly board meetings to engage in the discussion that's taking place. And also, just last week, the Fueling Our Future Governance Board, again, that partnership between us and the Chamber, committed up to $250,000 to support the work between the CVB, the Chamber, the EDC, Folkways, Arts Partnership, United Way, Tri-College, and there'll be others, to focus on engaging our college students, making them aware of what opportunities are here in the way that they want to hear it, and they'll connect to it, and we can measure it, and hoping to help them launch many more careers here within our region than to see those students come in, get educated, and then go somewhere else. So we're very focused on the workforce component of this, not only as an EDC, but in partnership with all the groups I've mentioned and others.
Does that bring about any questions or comments from anyone? Okay, well, thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you for your support on the referendum.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, then we're moving on to 5B, which is a presentation on the 2020 census update. I do apologize, I don't remember your name, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Robin Houston. I'm your city planner, and I'm also one of your staff liaisons to your Census Complete Count Committee. And I guess I'm here tonight to update you on what's going on with the Census Complete Count Committee to date. Just give a, there we go. So we started this Complete Count Committee last March, and we had our first meeting March 25th. But as you'll see from our timeline here, the Complete Count has been in kind of operation since 2017. Some of you were on the council back in 2017 when this started. So the first phase of the census, we did a local update of all of the Moorhead addresses. There were city staff verified 17,500 Moorhead addresses. At that time, they added 2,500 addresses, deleted 100 incorrect addresses, and corrected 3,500 geographic locations. And that was a combination of planning, GIS, neighborhood services, various departments worked on that. I wasn't here for that, unfortunately. So the next phase of our Complete Count was then forming this committee last spring, and we've been very active. We've been meeting quarterly. City staff, we have 3 people dedicated upstairs to this in the Community Development and Government Affairs departments. So we started the Complete Count, and then in addition to that, we did a second and third phase of the LUCA this summer, because there were a couple addresses that were questionable, and the city was determining if they were going to appeal them. They ended up not. It was only about 8, and they were multifamily addresses. But during that phase, we also did a new construction update, which we were able to add 328 housing units, so more households to the census count this past summer. And then the last date is we're working up to the April 1st Census Day, which, just for your information, will be the first digital census since 1790. We've never done an electronic where people can go online and do their census on the computer. So we've been having the Complete Count committees quarterly, but we've also been having subcommittees throughout the year too. So we've been, like I've mentioned, we've been very active. Staff meets regularly also. We meet at least every other week. On your, up on the dais, I also included a copy of the presentation, but I also gave you a copy of our action plan, which we are constantly updating. We're constantly thinking of new ways to get outreach out about the census and get the word out about the jobs for the census as well. Why should we have a complete count committee? Everybody counts. We want to make sure everybody who lives in our community is included and counted. Congressional representation is kind of hanging in the balance in Minnesota. Last census, we were within 10,000 people of losing a representative, so we don't want to be in that position again this year. And last but not least, each person not counted represents approximately 28,000 in federal funding for Minnesota, and that's over the 10-year census period. So don't count one person. It's $2,800 per year for the 10 years. So we want to make sure we count everybody. Who gets historically missed in Moorhead? Across the country, it's typically a lot of young children are missed, people of color, indigenous populations, urban and rural local income households. Those are missed at very high rates. But in Moorhead, we are focusing on our hard-to-count residents, who we include as our new Americans, our homeless population, college students, and our snowbirds. We want to make sure all of those people are counted. Minnesota's projected undercount as a state total is 965,000, and that is projected if we don't do a follow-up. But of course, the census is planning on doing follow-ups. That's why we're hiring all of these census workers. What are the impacts of an undercount? As I mentioned, $15 billion per year for Minnesota in federal funding. Decreased representation in Washington, D.C., decreased growth and resources for your community. I wasn't here during the last census, but I understand the census had some impacts to your school district. Some schools were closed. And then also businesses use our census data on an annual basis to locate factories. They want to know where the people are because they need employees. On this page, this slide is very hard to read. There's a lot of information, but there are 55 federal programs that are shown on the next two slides that are examples of where that $15 billion goes to. Some of the programs, you'll notice some of these. We have a CDBG program that we use here at the city of Moorhead that does housing rehabilitation for low to moderate income households. We have a Section 8 program with the Housing Authority. And this is where it shows the data for the possibility of losing a congressional seat for Minnesota. I believe in 2010 we were within I don't know if I said that, within 10,000 people of losing a representative. What is the impact of an undercount, or the impact of an undercount? It lasts 10 years. So if we get our federal funding cut because we don't get everyone counted, we have to wait another 10 years to get those counts back up. Imagine the impact to Section 8 WIC Medicaid for our state. That's why we cannot emphasize enough the importance of the census. This is a sample of just some of the 2019 activities the committee has done, and then also where we're promoting the census jobs. Some of you may have seen us out. We had some tables. Bridge Bash was a fun event. We also were at the Kids Fest, at the Diversity Job Fair, and then most recently at the First Link Connection Fair. We're meeting a lot of people and giving a lot of information out about the census and census jobs. We're doing, sending out a lot of newsletters, doing presentations for different organizations. And our social media campaign hasn't really ramped up yet. We didn't want to, because it seemed so far out yet, but we will be. You'll probably see more posts, more e-notifications for census items starting probably in February. Here's a couple of examples. As I mentioned, we were at Bridge Bash. the First Link Connection, the Tree of Hope event in December. We've had a lot of fun talking to people and dogs. We had a lot of dogs stop by our tables. And then we are also had a table set up. We have tables set up at our Complete Count Committee, making sure we're providing our committee members with as many resources as possible. And then that other one is the Kids Fest. And then this slide just shows an example of some of our swag getting out, our census message. The one on the left is actually in the Moorhead High School. As a student got one of our water bottles and made a comment that she's talking about the census, so we'll take it. Free advertising. And then this shows a sample of some of our planned 2020 activities. We have a table planned at the Frostival in February. We're meeting with faith-based organizations in February also to talk about just giving them information, and then they can be a resource to their parishioners. We're also planning on walking in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We have more newsletters going out. Social media is going to be picking up, as I mentioned. And then also more the census job promotion. And I will say that we're always looking for volunteers, and if any council members would like to participate in a census event that we are participating in, let us know. We'll get you signed up and equipped with a nice t-shirt. And then last but not least, jobs with the census, we just want to put that out there again. You have to be at least 18. The currently Clay County wage is $19 per hour. That's gone up. They raised it because we've only got 30% of the jobs filled. So we need part-time. The jobs are very part-time flexible, and they'll be, spring into the summer jobs. So you can probably work as many hours as you like, but that's the web link to fill out an online application. And that concludes my comments, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robin. Councilmember Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Robin, thank you for being here. Good work. And I'm going to ask a question you probably can't answer, but we'll give it a shot. With the college students, what's the percentage you think you get of the college students with the census? It must be difficult to get a number on them.
They are counted separately, Mr. Mayor. We have group quarters counts, and then we also have the off-campus counts. So we have a special form and procedure for the group quarters. So I think there was an issue in the past getting college students counted, but this year we are going to make a special effort because that is one of our hard-to-count populations. So we're going to be working with like the resident life managers on the two campuses that have housing. And then also we're going to be doing some static displays and working with some students to get messages out for the off-campus students. Right now, we're working on a project with a marketing class at MSUM. They're doing a project, how to market the census to their students. So if anybody has ideas, certainly shoot them over to us, but we're going to make a really good effort to get all of those college students counted. The census also has a way to track, because the message we've been pushing is to make sure the college students know that if they live here in Moorhead the most of the time, and they're here April 1st, they count, or they fill out the census for Moorhead. Sometimes they'll do a double, like their parents will put them on their census, but there's tracking and double checking that the census has figured out a way how to cross-check for college students.
So if they live a majority of their time in Moorhead here, they count as Moorhead?
We get counted as residents here.
What if I got 2 kids in Twin Cities? Would that be part of the Twin City census?
Yes. So if they're there 9 months of the year, they would be counted at their school address.
I tried.
Thank you. Wow. Any of the council members have any questions? Councilmember Selgerville.
You said hard to count residents, new Americans. How are they being reached, and do they have a fear of being counted?
Well, I'm sure there is some, just based on, politics and what they've probably heard and read, but We are still coming up with strategies. Right now, we're talking about having some translation services through the Moorhead Public Schools available. We're also working on some advertising campaigns in some different languages to put on maybe public access or Facebook to get that message out that, you know, this is a confidential survey of your information, so, you know, it's not shared with other governmental organizations. We have representation on our committee, but we haven't had great attendance from those folks. So we were just talking about that today, about how to get those people more involved, to make sure we are getting them counted. We are going to be doing a newsletter through the schools, or the elementary and the high school, to make sure that those families at least get some information, and then they know where to go for questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other council members? Councilmember Watson Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Robin, what kind of, since, I'm just curious what sort of metro-wide efforts are happening, if any? Just thinking about the,
Metro-wide?
just are you working or comparing notes with Cass County efforts as well?
We have to stay, our efforts are primarily in Minnesota, but we do have some cross connections with our nonprofits, because some of our nonprofits work in both.
Okay.
So we have done presentations at events in Fargo, but they were for county, Minnesota and North Dakota service organizations, but obviously mostly we are focusing on Clay County, but there is some cross section.
Okay.
And we also are working, we have representation from Clay County on our committee, so we're reaching out to them, and then if some of the smaller cities around us need help, we've also offered them, you know, our action plan, so we can give them ideas as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other council members have any questions? Councilmember Duran, you're gonna raise your
No,
hand.
I was pointing to Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember, I'm trying to cover. Councilmember Lindos, my apologies.
Thank you, Mayor Judd. It's more of a statement of surprise that $19 an hour, we're not getting more college students applying for these. And I would also think that there's communities that, you know, I know it's seasonal, so I'm going to take down this and like post it to the listserv at the college I serve at, because those students usually need jobs, and then they would have the added synergistic effect of talking to their peers about this great job.
Sure, thank you very much. I think our economy is doing so well, so there's just kind of, you know, people don't need jobs maybe, there's just so many to pick from. You know, a lot of people don't know exactly what they'll have to do with the census, but I think it would be a great opportunity to get out and know get to know your community and knock on some doors. And the hours are very flexible.
Yeah.
We were commenting that it's too bad that 17-year-olds can't be hired.
I think there would be a few of those.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Robin, thank you for all of your work, and if there's anything that we can do, I know that my understanding is that City Manager Volker is saying there's a meeting on March 23rd. So if there's anything that I can do prior to that too to help get the word out, I'm not sure through social media or whatnot, please let me know. And Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
For those at home, we are now on 5C, which is a proclamation for the Moorhead Rotary for Human Trafficking Awareness. And I believe Mr. Steve Schaefer is here. Madam Clerk, is the proclamation down there? Okay. All right, we'll bring-
Steve Schaefer is the president of Moorhead Rotary, and asks that this be put on the agenda and a day be declared. So if it's okay, if you could read it out loud to him down there, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Yes, that's what I thought. This is the first time I think I've seen Mr. Schaefer since I used to work at Concordia. So it was good to see him again, and for an honorable issue here that we're working with in our community. So thank you and the Rotary for your service in bringing this to the public's attention.
Welcome.
So I'll read this. This is an official proclamation, City of Moorhead, Minnesota. Whereas human trafficking is a nationwide public health and civil rights crisis, its victims and survivors are everywhere, with each city and community being no exception. And whereas human trafficking includes both forced labor and sex trafficking, and whereas anyone can be a victim. In the U.S., it is estimated that 2 to 4 million victims are being trafficked. 75% are exploited for sex. Almost half are children, and most are women and girls. Victims come from all demographics. Traffickers target individuals who, for a variety of reasons, are vulnerable. And whereas Minnesota's safe harbor law recognizes that any youth under the age of 18 who is exploited through prostitution will no longer face criminal prosecution and will instead receive comprehensive and trauma-informed services. These services are available to youth through age 24. And whereas in Minnesota, the average age of participants served under Safe Harbor was 17. A slightly higher percentage of youth served were in Greater Minnesota, 54%, compared to the metro area, 46%. Most participants were female, 91%, while 6% identified as male and 3% as transgender, gender nonconforming, and other. More than half, 59% of participants were people of color. And whereas Rotary International, specifically Rotary Districts 5950, 5960, and 5580 are striving to increase awareness and promote prevention. The mission of the initiative is to end human trafficking in communities in Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, and parts of Ontario, regions covered by Rotary Districts 5950, 5960, and 5580. We will coordinate mobilizing Rotarians and clubs throughout the region to engage their communities in this issue. And whereas our initiatives focus on raising awareness, educating children and youth, reducing risk factors that make children and youth vulnerable, and stopping the demand. And whereas all communities must seek to prevent human trafficking before it can occur by promoting safe, healthy, and supportive environments, by changing the culture of acceptance of this evil. And whereas January was first declared as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month in 2010, and Human Trafficking Awareness Day is observed every year on January 11th by a presidential proclamation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Moorhead, Minnesota declares January as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month and January 11th as Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And I will sign the proclamation. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor Judd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for reading the proclamation. And I just want to add a little extra context. This is an effort of over 5,000 Rotarians representing over 160 Rotary clubs in the districts that Mayor Judd mentioned here in Minnesota, North Dakota, parts of Wisconsin, and parts of Ontario. Rotary has long been known as a group that comes together to work on issues that are important to the community, everything from playgrounds to ending polio to now giving some attention to this issue. I'm here as the current president of Moorhead Rotary, but working together with the 4 presidents of the other Fargo-Moorhead Rotary clubs so that this will be an issue that we're willing to put the efforts of our members behind and ready to work with the city as well as other organizations. We've invited representatives from the group Unseen to present at our club and we'll be asking representatives of different college organizations that are also devoting attention to this issue to join us so that it can be something where through education and action we can end this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, folks at home, we are now on item number 6 on the agenda. Item 6A, 6B is the approval of the minutes from the December 9th, 2019 minutes. And item B, 6B, December 23rd, 2019 special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? For approval.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Selgerville, seconded by Councilmember Lindos. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've had number 7,
Down to bottom.
8, 9, 10. I think we're down to 21.
Yep.
All right, so there's a presentation from the Trollwood Performing Arts Center School 2020 operating budget. And I apologize. I know I've met so many folks in the last year, I apologize.
Mr. Mayor, this is Kathy Anderson, the Executive Director out at Bluestem Trollwood.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I have a little bit of a presentation here. Come up to the screen. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for inviting me to share with you an update of what is happening at Bluestem Center for the Arts and Trollwood Performing Arts School. We are very proud and very excited about the collaboration we have with the City of Moorhead. To begin, for those of you who may not know the details of this collaboration, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of that. First of all, the state of Minnesota provided a $5.5 million grant as part of a state of Minnesota bonding bill back in 2005, which was designated for the construction of the venue that we know today as Bluestem Center for the Arts. A joint powers agreement was created between Fargo Public Schools and the City of Moorhead in June of 2005 to carry out the requirements of the state as Bluestem was constructed. The state bonding money required a match of $5.5 million, which was raised by Trollwood Performing Arts School and other entities assisting with the fundraising efforts. The money was placed in a special fund created by the city for the sole purpose of funding the construction of the project. The city was not required to put any of its own funds into the project, but is clearly identified as the entity that holds the title to the venue from that time forward. In 2007, a 30-year lease agreement was created between the City of Moorhead and Fargo Public Schools, providing a beautiful home for Trollwood Performing Arts School and the amazing venue that we know today as Bluestem Center for the Arts. The facility is used for school arts curriculum and activities, public performances, exhibitions, community festivals, corporate retreats, conferences, and other private rental opportunities. As part of our collaboration, the school district has agreed to provide the city with a program evaluation report, which is included in your packet, and a program budget, also at the end of that report, annually by December 31st of each year. According to the terms of our agreement, the city manager shall review the budget and the operation of the project to determine if the use is in accord with the original grant, and the city, by resolution of the City Council, will approve the budget if it is appropriate. And that's what brings me here tonight. I'd like to just share with you a little overview of 2019 and a look into what we are doing in 2020. Our organizational priorities are threefold. One is to provide quality arts education. 2, to offer high-quality entertainment for the entire community to enjoy. And 3, to serve as a community events center. We are very grateful for the support of our entire community and surrounding region. We've been voted both the best live entertainment venue by the Forbes Best of the Valley and best large music venue by the High Plains Reader's Best of the Best for the past 5 and 6 years, respectively. In addition, a new category was added to the Forbes Best of the Valley in 2019 called the Best Annual Non-Sporting Event, and Trollwood Performing Arts School was honored and humbled to be the first recipient of that wonderful award. In 2019, 82,469 people were served as a result of the programming of Trollwood Performing Arts School and the venue of Blue Stem Center for the Arts. With our partner Jade Presents, we hosted 14 concerts that drew 34,808 audience members. Blue Stem hosted 475 arts activities and events in 2019. Our youth programs served 1,160 students in 12 programs in 2019. Trollwood employs over 100 staff members on a seasonal basis, with 67% of our artistic teams and staff members hired from our local community. In addition, Trollwood hires in teaching artists and directors from around the nation to work with our youth. Many of them are alumni of our program, and in 2019, 29% of our workforce were alums of the program. We are proud to host public performances by other arts organizations, and we are also excited to hold exhibitions, community festivals, corporate retreats, conferences, and other private rental opportunities at Blue Stem. In 2020, we will be teaming up with Jade Presents for the 12th year running. We're looking forward to another amazing summer concert series featuring nationally renowned recording artists from numerous genres of music. We look forward to announcing many exciting concerts in the coming months. In addition, we're looking forward to hosting the 9th annual Symphony Rocks Blue Stem event once again in August. Really, the foundation of everything that we do is built off the 42 years of award-winning youth arts programming by Trollwood Performing Arts School. In 2020, Trollwood will offer 12 youth arts programs for students from ages 6 through graduated seniors. One of our largest and most well-known high school programs is our Main Stage Musical. This program features a team of teenagers who stage a Broadway-style musical under the guidance of professional artists and present one of the region's largest attended arts events. Last summer, over 15,000 people attended performances of Freaky Friday. This summer, we're very excited to bring Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella to the stage at Blue Stem. A program that integrates throughout all of our programs is called our STAR program, which stands for Students at Risk. No child is ever turned away from a program at Trollwood for their inability to pay, which is something our STAR program makes possible. It also brings mentors to students. It provides meals and transportation, instructional supplies for those students in need. This is a national award-winning program that began in 1997 and continues today thanks to the generosity of our supporters. As mentioned earlier, Trollwood enrollment in 2019 included 1,160 students. In addition, we offered 1,751 learning opportunities, operating our programs at a 92% capacity. Our summer middle school and high school programs and registration rates are structured in such a way that students are able to participate in as many learning opportunities and programs as their schedule allows for one affordable fee. With this in mind, individually, we served 641 students, as numerous students took full advantage of that opportunity and participated in more than one of our programs. This year, all totaled, our students received 78,318 hours of arts instruction. Out of the 641 students served by Trollwood in 2019, 87 were from Moorhead, representing 14% of our total student body. 20% of those students attending from Moorhead received scholarships from Trollwood Performing Arts School as part of our STAR program, with the majority of those students receiving full financial aid, including tuition, meals, and transportation to and from Blue Stem. We are so fortunate to have amazing support from many businesses and individuals, service clubs, and foundations. 35% of our annual budget in fiscal year 20 will be supported by our parent organization, which is Fargo Public Schools. The remaining 65% must be brought in through community support. Our constituency, especially those who believe so much in what we do that they provide their own financial resources, are what makes Trollwood Performing Arts School and Blue Stem Center for the Arts such a success. I invite all of you to join us this summer. And if you haven't been out to Blue Stem Center for the Arts, I would love to personally give you a tour, show you around, and answer any questions that you may have at that time as you're touring. And I'd also like to answer any questions that you might have at this time as well.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for your presentation. Anyone have any questions or comments? Councilmember Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to thank you for coming, and last year's show was unbelievable.
Thank you so much.
So, and it's a great highlight for Moorhead, and it's a beautiful area to have a concert. I went to the Steve Martin Short concert, and that was absolutely wonderful. So just thanks for being there, and thanks for putting on great shows.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilmember Durand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for being here and giving us that update. And thank you for all that you've done for that facility and the program out there. I was on board in the early days when, when we struggled out there a little bit and had to make some big changes, and it's paid off. And it's just, it's very inspiring to see how well everything is going out there now, looking back to where we were back 9 years ago or so. So just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your help back then. We did it as a team, and it was great, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Seljevold.
When I took a job in the Fargo Public Schools many years ago, Trollwood was at the infant stages. I was at Ben Franklin.
Oh.
And so I saw this, and I'm just totally amazed by how it's grown and how good it is and how wonderful and excellent it is. In fact, some of my favorite students I ever had, and I was a physical education teacher, and the problem I had was these guys, when we were playing badminton, they'd be up at the net talking theater. But they were such wonderful kids, and the opportunity that they were given. And I know one of them has, in one sense, has hit the big time. I've seen him on the screen, and it's wonderful to see, and it's the opportunity that they've gotten at Trollwood that makes it so fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Any other comments? And I want to say a thank you, and I apologize. I'm completely horrible with names because I know we had talked a couple times because
That's just fine. I understand.
I won't forget now because everyone's watching, but my daughter, Davy, was in the program where you and I had talked at Ben Franklin, ironically. And now I think I have two that want to be a part of the Trollwood program. So your product is great. The value that you provide for our community and our residents is awesome. So, I mean, kids that are finding their own path, so I'm really greatly appreciative for what you're doing, what your program's doing. So thank you for Trollwood. Thank you for being here. So.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Any other comments, thoughts? I think we're all good. Thank you for being here tonight.
All right.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Right. All right. So that brings us to item, oh wait, we have a resolution. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Can't move on. So is there a motion to approve the resolution to approve
So moved.
Trollwood 2020? I don't need to read it all. Y'all got it? Okay. Made by Councilmember Lindahl, seconded by Councilmember Seljevold. Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, number 22, Joint Powers Agreement, City of Moorhead Public Housing Agency regarding health benefits. And 22A is a resolution to authorize the Joint Powers Agreement.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'll take this. Also in the audience is Amy Sedegren, the HR Director, if we have any specific questions. Shelley Dahlquist, Councilmember Dahlquist, is also on their board, so I'm sure she can answer any questions as well. This item has been in the works for several years, at least since I started. Immediately prior, we hired Dawn Bacon as the Executive Director of Public Housing, and Dawn does a wonderful job. And she's very invested in the community. We work very well together frequently. They are a very small agency. They only have about 8 employees, including Dawn, and they don't have the buying power for benefits that we have here at the city. So we've been talking about this, as I said, for several years, and this year we were able to bid our health benefits with Moorhead Public Housing. as a buyer also. So what they get with that is we will handle their HR services in that regard at no cost to them, but they receive the buying power, so their employees will be going on our benefits. They will receive much better health benefits, and it will be a little more expensive, so they're phasing in the budgeting for that. The board has approved it at Public Housing, so we feel like we work very closely and well, and they are an extension of the city in that regard. If we can help them, we want to help them, and so I'm asking for your approval for that agreement today. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Madam City Manager?
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Duran, seconded by Councilmember Watson Curry. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work on this.
Yeah.
That moves us to item number 23. Might be a record for us. Mayor and council reports, 6:50 p.m. Councilmember Watson Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Simply wish to inform you about all the fun meetings I had on January 8th, this past Wednesday. Started the morning with our, Steve, if you have anything to add, let me know or chime in. We had our MAP bus coordinating board, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Lori Van Beek, who did a lot of work at our request to modify Route 4 as we have lost Link FM services, and there was a lot of concerns about some of the benefits it really provided to Moorhead stops and users of the services. So that'll be coming to us, but I just really wanted to commend Lori on her diligent work on exploring what the most efficient options were. And we also had the Cass Clay Food Partners meeting as well, and I was really excited that I got to provide a jurisdiction snapshot of Moorhead, and I wanted to give a shout out to Christy Leszewski, who provided me a lot of support and information on some of the great things that we're doing in the city of Moorhead in relationship to food and sustainability. There was a lot of interest, and there was simple things like our natural lawn policies, our partnership with the Parks and Recreation and accepting SNAP benefits at our farmers markets, so on and so forth. So I did pass on the PowerPoint that I shared with the group to City Manager Chris Volkers, and I don't know if you want to pass it on, but people were really excited about some of these things that, we've had policies in place for 5+ years, and it was kind of news to everyone else. Also wanted to uplift Mike Schroeder, who was with our Parks and Recs department, who was also present at the meeting. We received a community snapshot on application of pesticides, and Mike was able to talk through the process and making sure that, as directed, we're applying things in a safe and trying to minimize that as well. So appreciated that he was there and was able to so thoughtfully speak to that topic. Additionally, I wanted to give a shout out to the Moorhead Business Association, who hosted a legislative update with Representative Ben Lean and Senator Eakin. And then I did some other things during the day, but then I ended that day with our wild turkey management plan. And I also wanted to say a huge thank you to Deputy Chief Tori Jacobson, who led that meeting, and he did so very calmly, diplomatically. It was very hot in this room. We had over 70 residents, lots of members of the media. We had experts from the DNR. We had a number of biologists and other experts on turkeys, actually. And I really want to commend our residents and our staff for just the diplomatic way that they handled themselves. They were here for over 2 hours working through the issue, and I just think that's a testament of how the great things that democracy can make happen. So stay tuned for the updates on the wildlife management plan, but that was just one day. Everything kind of landed on the same date for me, and I just wanted to, again, express my gratitude to the staff with the city who were able to help me manage through all that, make sure I had accurate information to share. That's all I have.
Cool. Thanks for all the work in the committees. Is there anyone else that wishes to give a report? Okay. I'll just be brief. January 23rd, we have the coffee with the mayor, council members Deb White and Larry Seljevold, First Presbyterian Church 7 o'clock. Yes, 7 to 9. I have been talking with Madam City Manager and also our Public Works Director, Steve Moore, to discuss snow removal. So those that have any questions, thoughts, comments regarding snow removal, you'll get your opportunity on that date. Also, the State of the Cities, sponsored by the FM Chamber, is going to take place this Thursday, the 16th, at the Hilton Garden Inn in Fargo. Listen out. It's going to be a great presentation to celebrate Moorhead and our accomplishments over the last year, but also talk about the future and what we have going on in 2020. So other than that, that's all I have. I'll pass it over to the Madam City Manager.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Then item number 25, executive session, none. No new business. 26, 27. Any citizens that wish to address the council? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Madam Clerk, you got that? We're good.